Hello and welcome. This is Deborah Catt, and you are listening to the Better Sex Podcast. This is the home of unfiltered conversations about sex and relationships and how to make them better. In these conversations, I sit down with all sorts of interesting humans and discuss ideas and strategies that you can try at home so that you can have better sex. I believe that better sex makes for a better world. So if you want to have better sex and help to create a better world, please hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. And if you have questions about sex and relationship for me or my guests, please send an email to deborahtantracat@gmail.com. The information is down in the show notes below. So welcome to my guest, LiSara. LiSara is a Forbes featured healer, vocal channel, musical artist, spiritual guide, and entrepreneur. She hails from a lineage of medicine women and civil rights educators who worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the 60s. Global audiences as large as 15,000 have witnessed her dynamic live performances. She is the founder of Sexy Sound Healing, using healing frequencies of sound as an access point to enhance life and living across all aspects of living and being. She speaks multiple languages and lives on the California coast with her partner. I am ridiculously excited to have her here today. We are going to talk about music, about sound, and how using your voice leads to better sex. So I just want to say that when I first met her, I had put out a request on Facebook for some support, and she said yes. And she'd never met me. I'd never met her. We'd seen each other a little bit on Facebook, but she showed up to support me at the event. And she walked in, and there's this beautiful, radiant, feminine being that just walked into the room. And in that moment, I knew that whatever happened, it was going to be amazing. And it was. And that is it's just who she is. And so I am so delighted to have you here today. I read the official bio, but I'd love to hear your story. How did you get here?
Well, first I want to say thank you so much. And also thank you for that reminder. It's been so many years now that I forgot that that's actually how we met. Was supporting your event. Oh, that was such a lovely event. It's so funny when we have these official bios and then we have, the pulp and the juice and all the things that can't be captured in 200 words or, whatever these little, boundaries are that people set for each other around how long a bio should be and what you should say and blah, blah, blah. And I'm really excited to start with this actually because part of, I think, honoring all of us, which is so much of what being in sex and creating a pleasurable, enjoyable sex life for you is all about, is honoring the fullness of yourself. And so when I think about the ups and downs and ins and outs and all the winding roundabouts of my own story, I think about the importance of actually normalizing for all of us, just normalizing that while the world and especially social media often is a place where people only show the highlights, that it is actually what happens between those that is so pivotal and one, makes the highlights, worth celebrating, and two, makes life so deeply rich and vast. And for those of you who are new to me, I always use hashtag normalize the journey because we see this, like in the movie, if you ever watched Rocky or one of these movies where someone's like training for sports, there's like a 2-minute montage where they're getting their ass kicked. It's like, you know, and they're working and they're getting better. And 2 minutes in a, you know, over hour long movie is just not real. You know, it's not realistic. And the journey so often happens in what a movie shows us 2 minutes. And so, just honoring in your own life all of the things that happen behind the scenes, the feeling like you're getting your ass kicked, feeling down and out. My own experience was, especially in terms of career, was so winding. I remember by my late 20s, people said, wait, how many careers have you had? Like, wait, how old are you? I thought you were in your 20s. Like, yeah, well, you know, my soul is here to learn a lot of lessons. And so, yeah, I would get into these kind of niche industries like trade show marketing, for example. And, you know, have this experience and then be a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, anti-racist educator, and then be a love and relationship coach, and then move to leadership coaching. And now I'm in a place where I'm really focused on supporting folks with ease, healing through sound, and really understanding, actually, I don't know if we'll be able to get into it today or not, but I will be doing a training on this, a live training, talking specifically about binaural frequencies, what people typically call binaural beats, and how to utilize these along with something called brainwave entrainment so that it's easier for you to repattern the subconscious, meaning you can let go of old beliefs or ideas or stories you have about something, that whether it's not being good enough or lacking confidence or not feeling a certain way. You can also use this sound healing to actually release trauma from the body. And I love being able to do this with our members and clients who particularly have experienced sexual trauma and abuse, because, you know, if you go to talk therapy, like, you might relive the trauma. And so being able to access this healing physically through sound can be, and has been for a lot of folks, a really powerful way to actually release physically held shit. So I could say more because, you know, the journeys and the stories are long. But yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this place. So thank you.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I really appreciate the hashtag normalize the journey, because I feel like so often much of the work that we do is just being like, hey, you are normal. You're okay. You know, your desire is normal. Your interests are normal. Totally. They just don't happen to be reflected back to you on a regular basis. The other thing that I really love that you just said was, you know, talking about an access point. And I'm wondering if you could, I mean, I have an idea of what you mean by that, but I'm wondering if you can elaborate just a little bit.
Access point as it relates to sound, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly. So, and when it comes to sound, and specifically sound healing, I want to take a quick step back. Sound healing at its core simply means using sound for healing, and particularly using frequencies of sound for healing. Frequencies meaning the actual frequency of a sound wave. So the amount of oscillations in a wave happening in a second. That's more of the technical side, but just understanding that the frequency is not necessarily the beat, is not necessarily the actual notes, but rather the frequency of the sound. Even though we can also use notes and beat and other beautiful elements of sound and of music to create healing. And when we talk about healing, we are talking about restoring harmony to the body, mind, and spirit. And when people talk about dis-ease, right? It's often this lack of harmony. It's often this disharmony that's causing, whether it's a neurochemical imbalance in the brain, or dysregulation in the nervous system, or, you know, some type of, ailment that is actually being caused because there isn't a harmony as the homeostasis. So when we talk about sound as an access point, honestly, it's an access point for so many things. I mean, first of all, right now you're listening to us via sound, so just receiving information, of course, on a basic level. As it pertains to sound healing, sound can be really supportive, even in a meditative space for folks who, don't necessarily like to meditate, or they don't want to sit there in silence, or, it's just so jarring to go from a world that's bombarding with constant information and activity and stimulation to complete silence. So using sound healing as a meditative practice can also help one create that stillness within and come to greater self-awareness through allowing yourself to focus on the music instead of pretending that you're not going to have any racing thoughts, right? And that you're going to enjoy your first silent meditation if you've been constantly stimulated by random external sounds and just all the crap, for lack of a better word, that's out there competing for our attention. So that's one way it's an access point. It can also be an access point for actually tapping into your own intuition and understanding and learning to value your own internal compass, your own internal guidance. And this is so powerful. And it's so powerful so I have a membership that Deborah's a part of called Sexy Sound Healing. We have an app coming out soon. And what's really beautiful about this platform and community is that people are helping each other normalize the experience by sharing, like, hey, I think, I think I'm getting intuition, or I feel something coming on more strongly, and I want to listen to that versus all the voices that I've internalized from the external world about how I'm supposed to be, or what is quote unquote good, or how I should make decisions. And so being able to access your own intuition, know that internal compass, and really create a sense of true sovereignty, a true sense of self-ownership in how you operate, how you carry your own body, how you reflect and see your own self, is so powerful in terms of empowerment and strength, and obviously applies to the bedroom. Right? Because when we feel that sense of self-ownership and that sense of confidence, fuck, isn't that sexy? Like, whoo, like so much of sexiness. I don't know your opinion, but for me, so much of sexiness is that energy of just like, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Feeling and being able to really own that desire. And the place, what also came up for me while I was listening to you is it's like we can own, part of how we own that desire is using our voice and making requests, or creating boundaries, or, making sounds within the act of sex to, both turn our partners on and let them know what's going on. But more importantly, I've been noticing for myself that the more I sound, the more I use my own voice, the more I actually turn myself on.
Hell yes. Absolutely. And, I love that you just brought that up, because there are, do you know when people say, like, I'm a visual learner, or I learn through experience, or whatever? So in the United States, and I only have this research for the United States, but I imagine there's some similarities around the world. The majority of people are visual, and we are marketed to in many visual ways, but actually not that far behind is auditory. And so often we are not necessarily even, one, noticing, but two, realizing how auditory we might actually be. So just invitation as you're listening to this to reflect on like how you are affected by sound. How does sound affect you? Do you feel, if someone starts talking to you in a breathy, voice. Do you feel impacted by that? Right? How does that interact with you? Because as Deborah mentioned, and I certainly agree for myself, oh my God, I'm so turned on by my own voice, and allowing myself to feel free, of course, that's another thing, to make those sounds in bed, and doing that, like sometimes I will realize how turned on I am by the sounds that I've just made. I'm like, oh my God, I'm more turned on than I realized.
Right?
I'm making that sound. And it's funny, there's actually a sound I make when I come that I literally cannot produce at any other moment, which is great for my partner. So now he knows that it's authentic.
Oh, that's so good.
By the way, y'all, please stop faking.
Yes, please. Please do not fake. It does not serve anyone
No one.
at all in any way, shape, or form. But I love that you said that, because one of the things that I notice is that different sounds feel different in different places in my body. And I'm wondering if you've had the same, if you could speak to that, if you've had the same experience. Like an ah sound sounds very different than an o sound.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my God, so good. I actually heard two things in what you just said. So the different sounds hitting your body in different ways, and then one same sound hitting different parts of the body in different ways. And so I want to speak to both. First, to the same sound hitting different parts of the body in different ways. That is part of, so I mentioned these frequencies, right? The sound waves that are measured in frequency. Because our bodies are mostly water, we interact with these frequencies with with great ease, actually, whether we're conscious of it or not. And so because different parts of the body may have different tensions inside of it, more, if there's a place where trauma is being stored, or there's feeling of anxiety, or these feelings and emotions that live partially in a physical place in your body, which is why it's so important to do emotional release, because emotions do live in our body. You can feel different sounds in different places, and that can mean that it's working on a different place. If you're in sound healing, it can mean that, a part of you is just more sensitive to that particular frequency. So I really appreciate, I don't know if that was your exact question, but it's a really interesting place to explore. And when we talk about that ability to create deeper self-awareness, that's a really big part of it, is being able to actually perceive, and one, know that you can perceive these differences, and then two, actually allow yourself to do it. So I'm glad that came up. And then the second piece around different sounds, so there are different types of sounds that actually are known to correspond with different power centers in the body. So like the difference between the vowel sounds that you mentioned, the O and the Ah, and then also frequencies that, if you've ever heard of solfeggio frequencies, that are typically known to correspond with different chakra centers. So these power centers, the main 7, up and down our spine. But yes, absolutely. And that's the beauty of being able to engage different types of sounds and to enjoy this as your own exploration for yourself, right? I could sit here and tell you what research says, but my gosh, how much more fun is it to allow yourself to go to literally, and you can just say right now to yourself, ah, for your own voice, right? It doesn't even have to be no singing, nothing special, just ah, right? And feel for yourself where that lands in you. And it can be difficult if you've never consciously sat with this before. So just know that the more you do it over time, the more you'll develop that awareness and that ability to perceive what is actually happening in your mind, body, and spirit. And it's so beautiful because it builds your own relationship with yourself. And of course, when you're with partners in the bedroom, it makes it, I keep saying in the bedroom, and wherever you want to fuck, okay? You get to have this self-awareness that you can communicate and help your partners make your experience better, right? So, and then of course also your depth of self-awareness also translates to being able to notice that in a partner too. So what's super cool is that you can also have an experience with a partner that they didn't even know how to communicate something that they didn't know they needed, but you could observe it, you could sense it because you are at a different level of perceptivity. And that just enhances the experience that much more.
I love that. As you were talking, I was thinking, oh, okay, so this is how sound works in our bodies. And I'm curious, how sound works outside, like to help set up the atmosphere. Or for instance, I don't know if my partner did this on purpose or not, but when we first got together, he kind of played the same soundtrack over and over again. So, like, I literally feel like my body is now conditioned. Like, there are some songs, like, Enigma comes on a radio and my body reacts. So I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about that.
As soon as you said, I don't know if this is intentional, I just started laughing. I don't know if it's intentional or not either. It's just funny. But yeah, I love this, like the setting the atmosphere, setting the mood. So a few things. One, people and, perhaps your partner, just that song helps set the mood so that he can, show up in the way that feels good. But then there's also, and I briefly mentioned this toward the beginning, this concept of brainwave entrainment, which I don't think we'll have time to get into, but it is super important and I want you to know about it. So get on my wait list for the free training that we're doing in a couple weeks where I'll go into detail. But the same way that we can train our brain to enter different states of consciousness through brainwave entrainment, we can also train our bodies. And there are so many ways that this is already happening in your life, actually, unconsciously. So I'm going to name it so that you can start to notice it. There are so many ways that we can be conditioned and or condition ourselves to having a certain response. And so the exact scenario you described, Deborah, is this conditioned response, right? So let's say you get together the first time this music is playing, you have, whether it's an incredible experience or a great experience or whatever, you associate that music with that experience. Or you can associate it with the love of your partner, or you can associate it, right? Any part of that experience that you remember. And then so when that happens again and again, it strengthens that level of association and creates that neural pathway in your brain that says, Enigma music, sexy time. And so was that intentional on the part of your partner? Maybe if he's into psychology and knows that, but it could also just be that he already had that neural pathway established. And so that was his idea of what to play, to whether it's calming the body or getting into that space, right? However, whatever particular feeling is the quote mood setting for him and now for you both, which is
right.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love it.
Well, and it kind of makes me think a little bit as you're talking, about what kinds of musics, like it almost, now I'm curious if there's a certain frequency that's like sexy frequency, like, and what I'm thinking specifically is the song, the great sexual healing, like that is such a
Sexual healing, sexual. Hey, yes.
like there's something about that. I mean, and I'm wondering, it's slow, it feels like it's in the same range. And I'm wondering, I'm not exactly sure what I'm wondering about, but there seems to be something around whether it's a faster tempo helps us get amped up versus something slow, which would make sense that might help us get into a more sexy mood.
Totally. So, two things. First and foremost, always, as you're listening to this, know that what makes you feel sexy, regardless of what any research says or standards say or people in the world say, go with that. Like that is your sex. If you feel sexy, jumping up and down and dancing super fast, which I absolutely do sometimes, right? And you can also think about like twerking. It's like a fast movement with your ass when you're dancing. And typically we are shown, especially in society, that, and you can even remember the moment where I came a little closer to the mic and I lowered my voice and I slowed down my tempo as I spoke. So a lot of times that slowing down, that actually lower register, and that, as I mentioned before, specific frequencies do correspond with various power centers in the body. So if we consider the sacral chakra, or, where the reproductive organs would be for you, that technically corresponds with a lower frequency and a lower note. Well, I won't say a lower note, but the note D is typically associated with that. So there are these ways that research shows us correspond with these places within us. But again, the power of the neural pathways and the associations that you make in your brain, you can set yourself, like you can literally, if you want to experiment with yourself, you can literally condition your brain, like pattern yourself so that whatever, like even a song that you fucking hate comes on and you can actually have a biochemical response of being turned on. So there are the ways that our brain is so powerful that it can override any kind of, again, the research-based things that say what's going to turn us on. But yes, there's definitely an association with that, slowing down and the deepening of the notes, and also a certain rhythm that can be associated with getting into that type of space. And it really does get to be and is unique for so many of us. So like probably most others listening to this don't have the same association with Enigma. Maybe they might now. They're like, oh, let me get into it. I've never said so. But yeah, to notice, I think what's most important is to notice what that is for you, to actually let yourself go on a little listening journey. And you might just start with songs you already love, songs that feel sexy to you, songs that perhaps the vocalist, if it has music, or excuse me, if it has, lyrics and voice, where you feel like the vocalist sounding sexy or confident, or, just checking in with yourself and noticing. When I used to do relationship coaching, I would often, toward the beginning of an experience with a client, I would have this kind of take yourself on a date type of, not assignment, but, experience for them to literally take their body on a date. And it was both physical and mental. And this is a part of it, is really getting to explore yourself as if you were a new lover, and a new lover that you really wanted to be with. Because let's keep it real. Like, you've got yourself for the rest of your life. You've got you. No matter what happens to anybody around you, you've got you. So taking yourself on this date, getting to know yourself. And, you know, the thing about getting to know yourself is that you already know a lot, right? So it's not the presenting, in the cute way that we might package ourselves for someone outside of us that we're meeting, but we already know the depths. And so often we can be focused on the negative things. And so a lot of times, in the experience of my former clients, getting to take themselves on a date was actually allowing themselves to highlight not only the most positive aspects of themselves, but to see themselves, to choose to see all of them in a more positive light, and to notice and honor and witness and be present for that. Because, you know, if I were to come on here and say, like, listen to this music at this particular frequency for this long, that's prescriptive, right? And that might not be true for you, especially in a world where neurodivergence is super common. I have neurodivergence in various ways. And so, you know, just really honoring the uniqueness that is you. That's part of what makes us sexy, is loving all of ourselves and, you know, being willing to cherish and nourish. And you can't see me, but I'm just running my fingers up my arm now in this caressing way, just being willing to touch yourself, perhaps proverbially, perhaps physically, but to really be able to just be present with yourself and love what's there, no matter what the fuck society says or what other partners have said or what's been around you. To see yourself and be with yourself, because you are a sexual being, because all humans are. We all have this capacity. Sex is how most of us got here, whether it was the physical act or the, you know, science recreating that physical act. But sex is such an important part of our being. And so giving ourselves time to really connect with that, and explore through all of these different sensory pathways is so, so, so important.
I love that. Yeah, one of the things I like to say is that if we can't play our own instruments, it's really hard to play with others.
I love it. I love it. And definitely hard to tell people how to play with yours. You're like, oh, that feels off, but like, hope they do better now in the next 10 seconds, you know? It's like, wait. I love that. That's such a beautiful phrase. So good.
Thank you. So I'm curious, you kind of alluded to a few things, but what are you up to these days? Like, what are you passionate about?
So becoming a sound healer, and also my own experience of receiving sound has completely transformed my life. I mentioned neurodivergence. I also have experienced a lot of trauma in my own life. So literally being able to release this and to heal this and, just to show up so much more powerfully in depth of love for myself and thereby with my partner. And then to see it reflected from him, because he's, what's happening outside of us is often a reflection of what's happening within. So I have just completely dedicated and committed my life at this time to healing. And when I say healing, my self-healing was my journey, but and it continues, but healing out there, healing in the world. So healing, and then, working with sound and being a musical artist, musical producer, massive music nerd or sound engineering nerd in my studio. And Sexy Sound Healing is this beautiful community that I mentioned earlier that Deborah's a part of. And we are launching the world's first sound healing app that is specifically personalized and channeled for you. So every single week inside of Sexy Sound Healing, there is what we call quote unquote dose of music medicine that you don't even necessarily need to sit down and listen to. You can just, in fact, I played it before our before we got on to record this. You can literally have it playing in the background while you're going throughout your day. So it's designed to fit into your life such that you can utilize healing frequencies to, as mentioned, to heal, to release old shit that you don't need anymore, to call in, to magnetize things into your life that you desire, to create that deeper self-awareness, etc. And as I mentioned, because I used to be a coach, in addition to that weekly dose of music medicine, we receive, or you receive, I said we because I receive messages as I channel. And so every week when you go in, there are these channeled messages for what that dose of music medicine represents for the week. And then you listen to it. And then there are coaching questions, that self-guided coaching questions, where you can actually integrate this into your life instead of just going, okay, I listened to some music. Now what? Nothing happened. Right? Being able to actually reflect on it and apply it to your life in real time, right? Because it's channeled for that week so that you can be guided in whatever is coming up for you and know how to better kind of face the week, face your life, face the world. And then every month, once a month, we get together for a live virtual sound bath for an hour. And there's also every month live Q&A, ask anything, and receive personalized intuitive readings. And we just had that for this month, or we're recording this in June. We just had that a couple of days ago. But it's always the third Tuesday of every month at 12 Pacific for members only. So feel free to join us. The app is going to be live. It should be live by the time this airs.
Wow, that is super exciting.
It is so exciting. And then also this community aspect where we get to gather outside of the algorithms of social media and someone trying to distract you with another ad. But you can actually gather in this community where we will normalize the journey, and also normalize these experiences of, what is it to actually detach from all of the conditioning and internalized beliefs that we received, whether it was from our families or society or, watching whatever media or ads, etc., and really coming into your own, what I call intrinsic power, which is so much of what sovereignty is about, is that power that is uniquely yours, not in comparison to anyone else, not power over anyone else, but your own power. That is the life force energy that gets to pump through us. And so being in community where it can be normalized is actually one of the fastest ways to kind of change your own situation. Like if you want to transform something in your life, getting around people who are already doing it and thereby normalizing it for you is one of the fastest ways to do it, because we are humans, we're social creatures, and we learn from the environments around us, often subconsciously. So having this community element is super, super important in actually seeing the real life shifts happen. And people in there have experienced everything from activating intuitive gifts they didn't know existed to literally making more money, like changing jobs and, getting the clarity to do that. So, so having, and then of course, trauma releases as mentioned. So what can happen for you is infinite. It's just you being willing to show up and receive for a few minutes a day or a few minutes in a week, So such is the power of music. Sound healing is one of the most ancient forms of healing on the planet, and many intuitives say that it is also the future of healing as we go forward at this time.
Wow. I love that. And, having experienced your gifts, I highly recommend that you check out the show notes and join us in the membership, because it really has been a very integral part of just moving through some of the things that have been up in the last year. It's been a real refuge for me to be able to find that I guess I was going to say vibe, but I guess it's actually the frequency, isn't it?
Yeah, they go together.
Beautiful.
They go together.
Well, listen, so if somebody was to get one thing out of our conversation here today, what would you want it to be?
Just one. Okay. It's interesting because I feel like we went a number of directions between, normalizing your own unique experience and then understanding how sound frequencies work and then, having the exploration to understand what best supports you. Which maybe that's could that be one thing? um, I think the most important thing is really to know thyself and to let it be a fun exploration. There's so many things in the world that, especially even when it comes to sex too, it's like, oh, this is how you're supposed to look. Like if you don't do it like a porn star, you gotta like keep trying, honey. You're not there yet, It's like, that's not it, or it can be it, but to come into truth with yourself and to embrace that, because that what is true for you is true for you because it's supposed to be true for you, like that alignment. And sound is an extremely powerful, one of the most powerful tools to really come to that place in your journey. And honestly, the sex is like the icing on the cake, like where it just gets to be more of a natural flow as opposed to something you really got to think about and make sure it happens and work hard at and shame yourself for when the thing didn't work perfectly, blah, 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 like none of that, So really being able to go to the root of yourself such that all the energy that emanates from you feels juicy, feels good, feels luscious and vibrant in whatever way is unique to your own expression.
Yeah.
So I think that's my one.
I love that. And I just want to add, because it came up earlier, that the one thing all of that one thing, and I want to include, do not fake.
Oh my God. Yes, I'm clapping. Yes. Look, faking helps nobody. And you know what it does? It reinforces to your own subconscious and nervous system that your pleasure doesn't matter, that you don't matter as much as pleasing somebody else.
Yeah.
So know that it can literally be detrimental to do it. And if you're with a partner who you want to be with, they want to ensure your pleasure. They want to, they're going to care about your experience. They want to know how to help you get there. And if you are, and I know this is the case for a lot of folks, if you are someone who is specifically female, who has never experienced orgasm, and so that's where the faking has come from, know that this exploration that we've been talking about is really so that you can have that experience. And it doesn't matter if you've gone 56 years of your life with never having one. You could have one tomorrow. You could have one next week. And I really want to emphasize those times, because it's so easy to say, oh, this hasn't happened in forever, so it's not going to. Right? That's the type of belief that we actually use sound healing to release, to let go of, so that we can open to what's available for you, so you can open to your desire. So even if, and I know it's harder to say when there's this type of shame around it, but even if that's your experience, let yourself step back from the needing to fake and to explore what actually does take you there, because it is possible for you, no matter who you are, what your age is, or what your past experience has been.
So good. Oh my gosh. And I just want to so thank you for your time and your energy and your wisdom. There's so many different ways I can even imagine this conversation going forward from here, but I'm going to stop now.
Totally.
And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Deborah Katz, the Better Sex Podcast. My incredible guest, LiSara. Please check out the show notes. You can find information about the Sexy Sound membership, the app, and all of the incredible things that she's up to. Please check her out. Again, please like, subscribe, comment, and explore yourself. And on that note, have a wonderful, amazing rest of your whether you're listening by day or by evening.
By dawn.